Wednesday. Let me get your thoughts on this. President Trump told the New York Times last week he has an absolute right to do what he wants with the Justice Department, including firing Robert Mueller. What do each of you see as the political costs of that move? Sarah, I'll start with you.
I find that to be, a very frightening and contemptible statement. I got my PhD studying authoritarian states, and that's the kind of move that we tend to see out of an authoritarian country, out of a dictatorship, and not in a democracy. Trump does not understand that the DOJ and these federal bureaus are there to serve the public. They're not there to serve him. Jeff Sessions is not his personal attorney, which is how he's treated him, and Mueller is not supposed to be his lackey. He's not going to bow down to him like so many members of Congress have done, and Trump has acted as if he expects them to do. So I think it's extremely important that we maintain independence in this investigation, and I think in the name of the country and the citizens that the government is supposed to be serving, both Democrats and Republicans should be backing up that aim and protecting Mueller's independence.
Stewart, how do you see it?
When I was in government as a lawyer, I yearned for a stamp that said legal but stupid. And I think that would probably describe the situation here. He probably has the legal authority to fire Mueller, but it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, Ned, what about that notion? Legal but stupid?
Oh, I totally agree with Stewart. I think it's legal and constitutional to do it. I think it would be ill-advised politically. I don't feel like the Mueller investigation is really going anywhere. What I'd like to see happen is actually Chuck Grassley call in Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and say, listen, we're not going to continue to fund this investigation unless you actually bring us credible proof that you will bring indictments, Mueller will get indictments based off Trump-Russia collusion, because what I've seen so far are only just process crimes, and I'm not really sure where this investigation is actually going. So I'd love to see congressional oversight step in and say, hey, listen, we're funding this. We'd actually like to know where this is going, or we might start to cut back on the funding. But I think it would be absolutely a terrible idea politically for Trump to fire Mueller. And even though he does have, I think, the legal and constitutional right to do so.
What would be the political fallout, you think, Ned?
Oh, I think he would give total life to this whole investigation yet again. I think he would put fuel on the fire of obstruction of justice. I think that there would be a lot of negative fallout, and it would just bring another 3-6 months, maybe even longer, of negative media in regards to this entire investigation. What I really do think, and I wrote an op-ed even before this one about Mueller's team, that I really think the Mueller investigation is going nowhere in a hurry. In many ways, I think, even though people won't admit it, it really is over, because they've brought no proof of collusion after months and months. And again, people need to be reminded this investigation into Trump and Russia collusion has been going on for about 18 months. With the intelligence community and many inside the bureaucratic state that do not like Trump. I think if there was proof of collusion, we would have heard of it by now.
Well, Republicans have focused, as you know, on the text messages from Peter Strzok in making the case for Mueller's firing. Here's what Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford told John Dickerson on Face the Nation last month when asked if those texts taint the Russia investigation. Take a listen.
Very serious to be able to have someone inside. What they've got to determine is, was he directing the investigation one way or the other while he was on the investigation? Is that something they can go back and repair and look and see if there's any kind of bias that's in it? Obviously, I don't think it taints the entire process, but it certainly taints that season of it, and it's something you should look at with any political investigation that he was on at the time.
Ned, do you agree with Senator Lankford?
Well, what I would actually like to say, I do agree. I do agree that it tainted it. I agree that Jeannie Rhee's presence, Aaron Zebley's presence, Weissman's presence, these have all tainted the investigation. And I know people that know Bob Mueller. They were at DOJ when he was head of the FBI. They think Bob Mueller is an honest broker. They think he is a patriot. But even they think that the team is so tainted that the investigation as a whole is tainted. What I would like to see, and I believe Devin Nunes has attempted to subpoena Peter Strzok, is to get him in front of a committee and have him ask questions again, under oath, in an open setting, and ask him what was your role in this investigation, and explain everything in an open setting the American people can understand.
Well, Stewart, you wrote this in a piece for Lawfare. Quote, the texts say a lot, none of it good, about the FBI's culture and Bob Mueller's staffing choices. They say nothing about a grand plot by the deep state. Should Bob Mueller be held responsible in the long run for those staffing choices, Stewart?
Yes, he is responsible for the entire office, and if he's made bad choices in picking people who are very competent lawyers. So I don't think anyone questions the competence of anybody he's hired, but who have a consistent bias against the president, then he's probably made a seriously wrong choice that he's going to have to lean against as he is sitting in the conference rooms, listening to them tell him what they think should be done next.
Well, can a president, Stewart, obstruct justice?
Yes, I think a president can obstruct justice. I have not seen much that looks like obstruction of justice, particularly if there's no actual crime that whose investigation is being obstructed. The idea that you can obstruct justice in the abstract, while it may be true, is not going to fly in this context.
Well, Sarah, you wrote in a piece for Fast Company, quote, even if Mueller is not fired and the investigation reaches its conclusion, Trump will very likely disregard the findings as he believes himself to be above the law. So what do you see as the role of this investigation?
I think the investigation is important, and contrary to other claims, I do believe that he has obstructed justice, and not only that, he's admitted to obstructing justice. He said so himself on television to Lester Holt, which I think sort of shows his idea, of his role in this investigation, that he does believe that he's done nothing wrong. He does believe that he's above the law. That belief might be sincere, but the law is telling us otherwise. And there's been such a wealth of evidence in the public domain. The emails released by Donald Trump Jr., the indictments of Manafort and Flynn, the other emails released by Felix Sater and Michael Cohen. There is so much out there, that is damning, that I think it's very hard to shrug this off. And I think if the investigation is taking a long time, and believe me, I would also like it to be faster, it's because there are so many parties implicated. And in certain cases, for people like Manafort, it goes back so many years.
I mean, safe to say there is a lot that we don't know right now, but I'm curious to get each of your takes on this question. How do you think the Mueller investigation has affected the Trump administration so far, politically speaking? Sarah?
I think it's, emblematic of a general tenor of corruption that has been there from the moment that this administration came in, as well as chaos. I mean, we've had problems in our domestic policies. We've had executive orders struck down for being unconstitutional. We've had protests. We've had a lot of anxiety, a lot of suffering, and we've had a lot of, covering up of actions by an administration that is against transparency. A lot of people today brought up transparency, and I hope this is something that, regardless of what position we have on the administration, we can all hope for, that the administration should be open, that it is transparent, and that it should let people know what it's done and what's going on now.
Stewart, what do you think the impact has been on the Trump administration so far politically?
It's an enormous distraction for the president. It plays to all of his worst, if you say something bad about me, I'm going to say 6 things bad about you, instincts, and it's led him to really double down and triple down and quadruple down on a whole narrative relating to Russia that is increasingly irrelevant to what his administration is doing, but which he simply can't let go of. So it's a political problem for him that's going to continue for as long as the investigation does.
Ned?
No, I mean, it's never a good thing to have this hanging over the administration, and I think it's deeply frustrating to Trump and the White House that it continues to drag on. That all to say, I mean, I think they had a very solid first year in regards to policy. They got a Supreme Court justice. They got a tax bill through. They had a lot of success at the federal judges at the lower levels. They had some success. At the same time, I know that they want this to end because I think they feel that it's slowing them down in regards to not only domestic policy, but it also calls into question some of his standing on the international stage. And I know that he has expressed that frustration. So they want to see this wrap up as quickly as possible. And, my hope is that we'll see it wrap up sometime before the summer, but I assume they're going to drag this out at least till Manafort and Gates have their trial. So I think, we might be looking at another 6 months or so.
A lot to watch in the year ahead. Stewart Baker, Ned Ryun, and Sarah Kendzior, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elaine.